Hi everyone, welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. In one of the newspapers today, it's reporting that because of our prison crisis, many more offenders will be allowed to stay at home. Now, let me just explain. Many of you will know that currently here in the UK, we have a problem with our prisons. They're basically overcrowded. The government is reviewing how prisons work and is looking more at rehabilitation rather than punishment. This all means that the idea of someone being put into a prison is becoming something of the past. And in this latest report, it's saying that criminals, people who usually are sent to prison, or people who are due to be punished, they're going to be left at home instead, but with certain restrictions. And we're going to read about that now. So this story is from the Daily Mirror, today, Friday, the 15th of November. It says, prisons crisis could mean offenders do time in home. Now, when someone is doing a prison sentence, for example, spending 10 years in prison or 6 months in prison, or if I come and steal your TV, maybe a month in prison, something like this, it's called doing time. That's how we refer to that amount of time that people have. Doing time in prison. The people who go to prison, the amount of time they spend in there is referred to as doing time. Right, it says here, criminals could have their phone calls and car journeys monitored under plans to punish criminals in the community. The government is expected to announce that it will be visiting Spain next month to look at how they use open prisons, tagging, and other monitoring tools. Tagging is when they simply put an ankle bracelet on you so they can see where you are at all times. Labour last month launched a sentencing review. That just means a review of how they send you to prison. Labour is, of course, our current government. So last month they launched a review to look at alternatives to going to prison. They're saying here that offenders could be ordered to stay at home with the idea that they want to reshape what punishment outside of a prison looks like. A government source said it's about replicating conditions you'd ordinarily have in prison, but at home. And apparently Spain uses black box remote trackers to keep tabs of offenders and their cars. Earlier this week, the government said, I'm a big believer in how technology can support people, how we can manage offenders with electronic monitoring. And they're saying here, this review will consider all options to deal with the prison crisis in a sustainable way. Yeah, so this is something which has been ongoing for quite some time. This idea that our prisons need reforming. There's many people who believe that it's time we change things because we just lock people up and quite often they're left there. I mean, we have a number of prisoners here who are in prison indefinitely for very small crimes due to some strange law which was there around 10 years ago and was never revoked. But we also do have a lot of people, of course, who've suffered um, as victims of criminals, and they're kind of like demanding that prisoners stay in prison, that they shouldn't be let out. So it's a very difficult thing, a very difficult discussion. I mean, personally speaking, I'm very much in favor of rehabilitation, but I do understand there are some people who maybe for their own safety shouldn't be allowed out of prisons. Anyway, our government has already started the release scheme. It plans to let more and more prisoners out, especially those who are not any danger to the public. And it has to be that way because apparently for each prisoner, it costs the government a lot of money to look after them. So it is looking like prisons in the future will become something of the past. Hard to imagine, isn't it? But I suppose the whole idea of prisons, the whole idea of them is that people should be punished. And that idea comes from the 19th century and before. So it's about time we did something. I mean, a lot of people who commit crimes just feel that they don't fit into society. So maybe the problem is more about community rather than about prisoners. Who knows? None of us do, really. But that's the news of today, that because we have this overcrowding problem, it looks like more and more people just won't be going to prison. So if I do come and steal your television, then I'll be happily sitting here doing my podcasts, I suppose. Yeah, so there's also another story here that some prisoners are being let out early when they shouldn't be. There's a big story here about two extremists who were making a bombing campaign, and now they're out after the prison service telling everyone that there's no way they would ever get early release. So because of our prison crises, there's a huge rethink. The government's thinking again about how it manages prisoners and what that looks like. So very interesting if indeed prisons are going to be something of the past. Of course, many people protesting. Many people, again, are saying that Britain is very soft with some people, but very hard on others. And I'm not sure. I mean, I would like to see prisons disappearing, but only if there's some kind of safety guaranteed for the people, of course. People, meaning you and I. Yeah, I don't want to be waking up one day and, finding a criminal standing outside, for example, waiting to get my money. But yes, very interesting. In general, I think it's a good idea because prisons do seem to be something of the past. And this current review is also expected to consider completely abolishing short-term prison sentences. So, yeah, only people who really have done very serious crimes would ever be sent to what we currently know as a prison. Oh, very interesting, very interesting. Wow, we'll need to wait and see what happens with that. I had a letter a few weeks ago, as many of you know, from my prisoner friend. I know two people who are currently in prison. One of them's getting out and wants to come and visit because he hasn't seen me since I got married. And that made an interesting conversation with my family over breakfast one morning. Hello, you remember Jim? Yeah, that's right, the one who's in prison, yeah. Well, he's out and, he thought about coming to visit. Oh, you don't like that idea? Well, don't worry, he's not out yet. What do you want me to do? Tell him we've moved? We need to move. So those conversations are often very uncomfortable because we distrust prisoners. Once someone says they've been in prison, we think of them as bad people, but I suppose they're ordinary people who've made mistakes. But yeah, so many people getting out of prison early. There's some people who are very afraid, which is understandable. Well, that's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll keep you up to date with our prison service crises, and I'll let you know what's due to happen. See you. Bye.